There we go. All right, Land Use and Planning Standing Committee meeting of Monday, March 24th. To start the meeting, let's get to reviewing the minutes of March 10th, 2025.
I move to approve the minutes of March
10th.
10th.
I'll second. Motion passes. All right, resolution for the planning board to review the marijuana businesses. Did you all get a chance to look at that?
Just looking at it.
So one thing that we did do,
This is what I'm looking at now.
I don't remember.
so I wrote this resolution, and used a format based off of what we had done for other planning board recommendations. Essentially, just asking the planning board that when they're reviewing zoning to also look at the zoning for marijuana businesses allowed. One thing that I did include in there were the different types of businesses, per Montana regulation. One thing I see is a change from Denison, it looks like, where he has laboratory, and then afterward it also says and testing laboratories. I'm gonna refer to the room. Are there two different types of labs?
Why don't we just go to the
I
state?
didn't think so.
Yeah,
Yep.
it sounds like one and the same to me.
That's kind of what I thought, so.
I think the state has it as a
They also have
testing
a
lab.
manufacturing facility, one
Yep.
of the line items.
So the items that we have is cultivators, manufacturers, dispensaries, transporters, testing laboratories, and then I think our attorney added laboratory again.
Yeah, why did you not see the bottom?
I see yours, I didn't see a copy that came back from the attorney, so I'm wondering if I'm printing the latest, or if there's another one.
Or I wonder if this is the one that I wrote and I put it in there twice.
Well, the one that
I
I
just
have,
took it off the website.
the one that I have does not have your second.
Okay, this
lab.
came from Lonnie, when she assigned a number, and I'm assuming from Denison as well.
Does that have a number, those?
This one has no number.
Okay, then that's probably it. So
What's
this
the
is
number?
3689. It
What is
came 3689,
I'm putting it in right now.
okay? And it came in from just Lonnie
36.
to the city attorney, and he had a change to add laboratory when we did need it. Okay, so that was,
We can
Yeah.
check the state. The state
yeah,
has
and
it.
we'll just remove laboratory, we already have it on
It
there.
is
'Cause I went
way
off of
confusing.
the state list.
This is
The version I just printed that came from you does not have a number on it yet.
36.
Okay,
So does
so
that mean
it
that's not
looks
the
like
latest one?
Lonnie did not send this to everybody but just me, so I apologize for not. I assumed everyone would send.
Crazy. That's just so much better.
Right?
I only
So-
pulled up the one that you sent.
I will send this to you guys by tomorrow.
I'm adjusting it right now, Google.
So we'll just have this up for discussion, I believe, in terms of
Yeah,
our agenda,
it's
just
not up
discussion,
for
action. So,
action
Just
yet.
discussion
yep,
tomorrow.
so that's all I had for it. Does anyone have any comments in terms of,
I should look who I was handing that to as I walked in.
I think the problem that the planning board
I need
had
one.
with all of those others is that there is no place in the city limits that would allow for that.
right,
And so they looked and looked, and I don't know if the state, I mean, if you don't have a place for it,
right, and I think that it just would be, the only reason I put those line items is when that review happens, is to make sure, double check, and then if that's the case, include that in our zoning why.
Yeah, this seems,
So, because I mean, that's the other thing, is things could change, like,
right,
And
that's what you said.
We have something else in zoning, sexually oriented businesses that
right.
I'm not sure where you could find that actually fits it, or if there is, it's very narrow.
Floberg.
it was a
Substance
very,
in nature.
it was intended to be very narrow, but by state law, we had to have it. But we had to have it, not just allowed to have it, but had to have
We
it.
have it included in our zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only reason I included all of those, is I think it's worth reviewing, and
Mhm.
when they are reviewing it, to be doing a thorough job of it, so. And I just included those in the whereases, because that is what they have per the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Resolution 3606 provides a selection process for marijuana businesses within the city limits, and whereas the city of Red has determined that it is in the best interest of citizens to provide a framework for the.
So I took a lot of the whereases
Okay.
from this as well.
Right, I just figured this one up here, were you consistent with the city growth policies or the best interest? Probably.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah,
most
let's do
frequent.
that. That's not wrong, right?
Do we have to, as a city council, look at the way that it's selected?
So I believe that would come
That should be
to
the admin
council,
side.
but yeah, that's
Yeah.
gonna be admin.
Mhm.
Yeah, so first it goes to planning board for location.
So
the admin.
admin will have the process for the business registration application.
It's in both of them simultaneously
Yeah.
because they're two different.
Yep, so, yeah, same as any other registration, there's gonna be certain things you have to do with planning board and certain things you have to do
And
with,
just review what they currently have.
so that is on admin's agenda as of now, for purview, so that would be something that we're looking at when we're looking at 907. Okay, I think that we really didn't have too much for you guys, I
No.
feel bad that you made the trip.
So you got
Well, I
that?
just want to, just make sure I understand, so that,
Yeah.
in terms of what we're trying to address here, we're still moving forward with just looking at trying to just transfer the license. We're not
Yep.
talking about new locations,
Yep, so-
moving locations. We
And
just
that's
do
gonna
transfer.
primarily be taken in admin and finance,
Mhm.
so that's where we're gonna have most of those discussions.
Okay,
All we were talking about here today is the fact that we want planning board to review the zoning of where it's allowed
Mhm.
and what type of businesses where, and that's not gonna be something that happens until likely late summer. Yeah, so,
The earliest.
at the earliest, yeah.
The resolution from council will probably be 4 weeks from today. So what happened is in 2 weeks,
mhm,
they'll do that to make sure that it's addressing all of the things that are in there.
okay,
If you have any comments or things that you want to put in,
mhm,
bring it to this group next week, and what'll happen is it'll be in front of the full council next week, but as a discussion item only,
okay.
which gives everybody an awareness for 2 weeks to go look up home. Because that's when people come in with, well, what about this, now we've got 2 weeks to respond to it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do appropriate homework. The goal is right, not right now.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, so I think that is all we had for that. So reviewing Pride Park and potential guidelines for use, including but not limited to commercial, large events during, or large events in peak seasons, nonprofit fundraising scene, et cetera. So based off last conversation we had, from my recollection, is we would like to continue to accept and review applications that come through, but we want to have restrictions on size specifically. We want to make sure that it's non-exclusive, and we want to make sure that it is essentially reserved for any event that is taking Broadway. Is that correct from my recollection? And then a
So do
time
the high
frame
point.
or the amount of times you're allowed to reserve it as
Yeah, I
well.
was gonna say the frequency, how often.
Yep, so, in
And the
terms,
frequency, we decided twice.
Well, I don't know if we actually decided on a time. I think we were trying to do, were we trying to do seasons, or were we trying to do?
and that's the thing, we kind of we just started to tap into this, but
Yeah.
really didn't actually have a conversation of what our thoughts are.
Once a month, was that what we were saying? Twice
There
a
is some,
month?
I mean, that's the thing, we were saying once a month, we were saying once per season, we were saying twice a month.
Yeah, I don't,
So we really haven't come down to any reasoning or,
Mhm.
really haven't come down to any sort of conclusion on that. And I think that's really the only place where, one, we do have to come up with a square footage, like a footprint,
yeah,
but I think we should talk to the Parks Board because they do have a design plan going into place, or at least Mike Maples. And it sounds to me, it's gonna have the same design,
yeah, it's
just different.
updated,
Mhm.
updated.
And that meeting is set for the 31st at 9 o'clock in here, if anybody who's interested. can come.
Was the Parks Board,
Pardon?
meeting with the Parks Board?
No, this is, you're
Pride
gonna
Park.
have garden club, there's
Oh,
gonna be several
cool.
people from the, it's a specific meeting that's all they're doing.
Just for Pride Park,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me that time again, so.
30.
9 o'clock on the 31st.
9 AM. Math.
I will not.
Oh, no, at Pride Park is set.
Oh,
just
even
kidding.
better.
I think we'll do it as a follow-up here, though.
How'd you know it was gonna snow then?
Pardon?
How'd you know it was gonna snow?
Because
I mean, you wouldn't schedule it unless it was gonna snow, right? That's-
Well, no, you schedule it, then it's gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how we
Thank you.
get snow. Thanks, you guys, appreciate it, sorry to keep you all the way.
admin for us?
Let me double check for you here real quick.
I think you guys are.
I do believe it's on the calendar, on the agenda. And again, you can zoom in too, like, you don't have to, but
Yeah.
we do like having you here, it's really nice.
Come sit down in person, so.
Yeah,
We'll see you in the morning.
It is on there in the morning at,
9 AM.
Yeah, what she said, 9.
Very good.
I'll
Now,
get that one too.
The garden club is going to be discussing the use of the park.
No.
The new flower beds and different,
Just the design layout.
yeah, the design of it, which will then trickle down to how we figure out a footprint of where we
Yep.
wanna allocate usage.
After we see the layout.
So
Yeah,
9 AM at Pride Park.
Oh,
On
yeah,
the 31st.
at Price Park, 31st, 9 AM.
Okay. In my calendar, I will make a point of going to that.
Did you want to put it in April 31st? Is that where you're at?
Oh, no, this is March,
Oh,
it's just
okay.
April starts that day.
Just,
Yeah.
you know, keeping you track of mine.
Yep, it's,
I got you.
thank you, appreciate you though.
Sure.
So I think that will be good for figuring out the footprint, it'll also be good just to have a conversation with them and,
Mhm.
As
like,
long as that we're aware and,
yeah, this is kind of what we're thinking of and get their input. In terms of usage, I think we should talk about that, 'cause that's really the only thing that we're kind of wish-washy on at this point is amount of usage permitted. So, again, going back to, is it gonna be once a month, is it gonna be twice a year? I am personally okay with once a month.
I think once a month, once?
I think once a
Once
month
a month.
is sufficient.
I do too.
Yeah, I don't think it's overbearing and,
No, it keeps them from every weekend, it allows other people, it just, yeah, I think it opens it up for more
Activities.
activity.
and on that note, is it once a month, one time, one day a month? Or is it one weekend, is it, so just kind of broadening that conversation a little bit,
I would say one day a month.
one day a month? I mean, I'm fine with that, I
To
don't
suck up
have,
to suck it up for 2 whole days, you know that they'll do a weekend, and I think a weekend, you can't take it all in one weekend.
so, yeah, I have no problem doing once a
One
month,
time.
one day a month.
Month,
If
Just
you could,
one
in your
day.
therefores, also address
24-hour time.
the stuff that you want staff to look at for making reservations. So like, limitation shall be that seats remain available, that walkways remain available, all that sort of stuff, if you guys can spell that out in there.
So
Yep,
just the
make it real
reservation
clear.
restrictions.
Yep. Again, essentially, when you're using these spaces, like this space, this is what rules you need to follow, but we'll also make something for the city as well, that, one, you know, if there's any complaints,
Lines it out.
issues, it's tracked. Two, double checking Broadway closures, and if needed, like, no booking it when there's Broadway
Fourth of
closures.
July, car show.
Yep,
Broadway
Winter.
events,
Broadway
Weekends.
events,
they
yeah,
don't close it down for the car show.
that's true.
No, but just like,
Yep.
Broadway events.
Yep. And I think, and do you feel that's reasonable for city staff? I feel good about that then, like, I feel.
I feel like we've definitely narrowed it down.
Yeah, and again, it's not gonna be anyone who can go in there, but, and it, so keep.
Who's gonna bring the resolution?
I can work on the resolution, because I'll be talking to the parks
Yeah, you're.
board anyhow. So, I'll just put that on that same day, so I do it all at once. And then by next meeting, we should have something on paper to review.
Okay.
Okay. Look at that, we're just cruising right along, you guys. Okay, so then, resolution reaffirming process for permanent structures on city-owned land. I will let Dave introduce this.
Yeah.
So I will, with your blessing, I will talk about the next two. So we've got
Yep.
the structures on city-owned land and also the resolution of intent. So the basis for this conversation, you guys may be aware that we received the tourism grant money that we got. That's a pretty big chunk. And one of the things that has been high on that agenda list is how do we spend that money and with a specific goal of how do we increase tourism, our tourism season to basically make downtown Red Lodge a bigger winter deal. And so that ice has come up several times and it's great. And I'm thinking, hey, all the conversations I've been a part of are absolutely great. But then I thought, oh, we should really go, before we start filling out budgets and applications and start doing this, I need to get a feel for what city council is, make sure if city council's approved and get this out into the community that's there.
Yep.
Secondarily to that, is it gives us a chance to kind of talk about what does our process look like to do this. And I think we all know what it's supposed to look like, where there's a resolution of intent that says, hey, we're gonna do this, and then when it's all said and done, we move forward with it. As I look at that Lions Park, ice rink thing, and we've got some folks from that group that are going to talk about it, but basically what they're talking about is leveling the field and then putting a permanent structure in there that's level. And then it'll also have the ability for cooling so that there can be more days that there's ice and whatnot there. But to me, it kind of compares to the skate park that we did a few years ago. So with the skate park, it was a city structure, it was the city held the note, coordinated everything. We worked with outside groups to help make it happen, but it was still the city doing it. But then I also look at what happened with the observatory and the grumblings that people have had there and saying, how do we fix this to make sure that we do this right going forward? So another one kind of, it's related to that first one. They want to add a storage shed up at the soccer field. So if that's on a permanent foundation, now we're talking again, basically about permanent, somebody's gonna come in and plant a row of trees or put a new fence in or do anything permanent structure, it really needs council's sign off on that. So my goal is, let's document that process that we all think is there. It goes to planning weighs in with their recommendation, have council put together, this is what that process is before we do anything. And then how, kind of probably determine what the MOU is gonna look like, first and appropriate on city-owned land. But if we're doing that in conjunction with this conversation about the ice rink, it's just a chance to kind of double check ourselves and make sure we're doing everything right. So that was the purpose of these two. And I also put it on the agenda tomorrow night at council meeting, just so that I can get full council's input of what are you thinking, or yes, go ahead and chase this down. Yes.
My concern with building on city-owned land for a group, a nonprofit, is what happens when that nonprofit disbands, when the city now becomes the caretaker of that. That was my problem with the observatory, is that.
And it's absolutely valid, because whether it be the gazebo,
Right.
whether, the skate park, we've got all sorts of these things. So my response would be, yes, that's why we need to do this process and spell it out. So that the city does evaluate, hey, what is the long-term plan to take care of this from a financial standpoint? As we look at tennis courts and pickleball courts, which are other things that are in there. That's another one that's literally gonna be city-owned land. It's gonna be some groups that use it more than other groups. And how do we evaluate to make sure, Lions Park, I've talked to Bob Shea, and I know Andy and Tom and Al have kind of all been keeping them in the loop and stuff as well. They didn't have any concerns with it. I think they recognize the questions that'll come up. It's kind of like, what is the community vision? We're gonna basically take permeable grass space and turn it into non-grass space. So there's some things that are good. It'll be a better ice rink. It'll certainly be nicer my understanding is they'll be able to have farmer's market down on top of it still. And it would be available for different types of events during the summer months still. But it wouldn't be green space. So, are we redirecting people to Field School Park, or that was one of the conversations of converting Field School Park into tennis courts, and there was a desire to keep it as green space. If we take a big chunk of grass out of here, I would say that raises the likelihood we want to keep Field School green space as Field School green space.
And I imagine with the proposal and the plan, only that lower section of Lions Park would be,
Yeah.
As it currently is.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
green,
I was trying to figure out how long it's been an ice rink, and as far as I can tell, it's as long as anyone can remember, that even, so if you notice that area, it's a depression, right?
It already comes up, yeah.
The reason it's a depression, because when the park was built, it was built for an ice rink. So it's, and the reason it was built for an ice rink there like that was because it was an ice rink before that. So it goes back years and years. Yeah, there's a fire hydrant there that was designed just for filling the ice rink.
Yeah.
That's why there's a fire hydrant there. If you notice, there's a fire hydrant across the street. The fire hydrant across the street is for the houses. The fire hydrant there was put in there to fill the ice rink.
wow,
So this is before my time. It's been like that for as long as I've been here. So I don't know if you've got it.
I skated there when I was still on double skates.
Yes, so it goes back a really, really long time to being an ice rink, and I think, Andy Anderson, was maybe some of that. I know, Jeff Scanlon was involved in it too, but I think it's been an ice rink for as long as anybody I can find remembers. So, But yeah, so it would be that area,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're correct, is that, you know, this is, I think that the things that get built on city land, this is my personal opinion, have to be in the public greater good. And they have to be for the benefit of the community, that the community would want them independent of a small nonprofit, right? So, you know, you look back at like the other, you know, if you were talking about Pride Park, right? There's stuff built in Pride Park, right? Like it benefits everybody. There may be nonprofits that are supporting it and keep it going, but ultimately it's the benefit of the community. The pool is another great example of something that is beneficial to the community, right? Like, and so, you know, this balances winter recreation and, you know, really, I think the goal with this grant that we got is to help improve our winter tourism season and having, and, you know, as we've seen this year, having a season that, having some amenities that are not all dependent on the mountain being operating. You know, they get shut down for wind and now a family can come down and go ice skating, provides more balanced recreational winter opportunities. And this would build a permanent ice rink that would be that. There will be cost in operating it that, you know, the city may have to bear at some point. You know, the hope is that they wouldn't, but they do bear some expense already in terms of water and heating the locker room and some of that kind of stuff. And I think some of that could be, you know, pushed into resort tax, into parks piece at 100%.
Yep.
And I think it adds a lot to the community, but there would be some expense.
So this would be, it would last, I'm assuming, much longer than the current ice skating season?
Yeah, so, you know, what, the hope, some of this is hope, but would be November 1st to, St. Patrick's Day.
And I will,
As Halloween to St. Patrick's Day is the
And again, remember that right now we have some warm days even in January or February.
Right,
where it says closed to the extent.
The design that we've looked at says it will hold it to about 50 degrees.
Oh,
that's great.
That's so much better than the current 25, 30.
Yeah, I mean, it would hold it, but there becomes a law of diminishing returns, right? It's expensive. It's more expensive to hold it at 50 degrees than it is at, you know, there's almost no expense to hold it at 10 degrees.
So there's
Right.
the electricity.
There's the electricity and a compressor to keep it going.
And there would be a shed in
Noise.
addition to the pad
Yeah,
that has the equipment and the Zamboni and stuff in it.
yeah. So kind of there's a trailer
Where's the
sitting.
Zamboni now?
And I was gonna say, do we have a
Zamboni
Zamboni?
is
We
guys
own
with
one,
the-
but you can't get it physically on the ice, so it lives down at Creek Street.
Oh, really?
I didn't
I
realize
knew
we
we had one.
actually-
Yes, yeah, so you cannot physically get it to the ice. So the hope would be that we could stage this, we could do groundwork first.
Yeah.
And then building second, and then pad and compressor would be the third stage.
How much was the tourism grant?
Depending on how, it's $1.2 million right now, 1.25, and then it goes to 2.7 is the total.
So, one thing with that,
And it's not all for ice rink.
no,
Can it also be used for maintenance? Can it go into a maintenance account?
No, I don't think that would be the intent. I think the intent would be to use this grant, resort tax, and donations to build and finish the entire ice rink. There is some option, I don't know where this grant program will go after this period. There is potential, because it's a pilot grant, that it could turn into a grant that would help with helping with these amenities. You know, I would say realistically, what you would look for is donations, user fees, and some resort tax to pay for it long term.
And then user fees means you have to have somebody there, and that's.
And no, I think you
Yeah.
would do it through like season passes and things that were not, I think there is, not anyone I have talked to has any intent that it would be something that would be staffed by anybody, because then your cost goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Right, look, all we're looking for is to pay for some electricity. That's
Someone to drive
really,
the Zamboni every now and then?
and honestly, it's
Yeah,
something
make
that.
sure on a Zamboni and-
Push Zamboni.
And
Isn't it
another-
a push?
yeah, I think we're just gonna charge for people to drive the Zamboni, because who doesn't wanna drive a Zamboni?
Everybody.
Everyone.
Everybody wants to drive a Zamboni. So, you wanna drive a Zamboni, you gotta pay for the fuel.
25 bucks. Drive the Zamboni.
Well, honestly,
people would do that.
They would, I will.
And again, thinking back to talking about events and using those spaces, again, event fees could come into play with that, to where people are
Where they
doing
could
private.
rent it.
Exactly, and
private
then,
parties.
again, not
Or
only
even in
that,
the summers too, like if they're, you
Mhm.
know, having that pad.
So I have the next big question that's come up, and I will tell you my opinion on it. Not everybody agrees with me. The question is do you put a roof over it? And the answer to that, from my perspective, is no, you do not, for two reasons. One is it's visually, it adds a lot to it. It would add a lot of usability, like in the
Mhm.
summer if it was covered and stuff like that.
That's
But
the appeal.
from cost, yes, I agree. And from a cost standpoint, probably covering it's gonna be another $2 to $4 million, and I don't think we
Which
should
we
add
have
that
to, we
cost.
have to maintain it as well.
Yes, and then you gotta maintain, I don't think we should add that cost to the plan. So the base plan is basically for, get grading, get it on grade, get a building built so we can keep a Zamboni and a snow removal equipment, and maybe it's another, add a little locker room space. And then the third phase would be concrete with chilling and a compressor. So, and the compressor makes noise, just so everyone's clear. That's a commercial area, its neighbors are the bank and things like that, and they're not very loud. I have one that's probably about the same size as we would use on the roof of the Pollard, so it's.
Okay.
Couldn't you, put some batting on the inside?
Yes, you can do, like that. There's one on the roof of the Pollard, you don't hear it,
Yeah,
but, you know, I mean, if you're standing next to it, well, it does make
just
some.
like you do at the radio station,
Yeah.
it buffers the noise.
If I may, I think what I'm hearing based on the conversation from this half of council, again, this is only half of council,
Mhm.
I think the answer is, yes, we're moving forward and looking with this. Is this a,
yeah,
I think so.
I can't think of anybody who would be against it.
oh, I
I
can.
can.
Give me a map, I can point out exactly.
The neighbors?
I think that's what it's
neighbors.
boiled down to. It's not in my backyard, right?
Yeah.
No, but even when it was, growing up, even though, my best friend lived right there, and it wasn't her backyard, and we never complained, like.
I've
parents
heard
didn't,
about the light,
I
you know,
think,
people turning on the light at night.
Yeah, so we've come to some resolution, but I think one of the things that this will provide is those lights were done inexpensively.
Mhm.
We will get like dark sky approved, non-shedding light that will make,
And
that
it
will
could-
shield and look better.
it can also be a more ambient thing too.
Yeah.
So I think the people that are gonna have the biggest issue with this is those long-term expenditures and what that's gonna end up costing the city.
Which
And
is a
then-
concern with every park.
And that's, exactly, and so to me, this brings such a dynamic piece to our community that the returns will far outweigh the
And there's so
cost.
many opportunities
And there
Yeah,
for.
so,
is probably the most used park amenity.
yeah,
Are there going
So-
to be like seating along the edge?
so there's a bunch of really, and do you mind if I?
No, go ahead.
So I got to hear a really interesting, presentation about pavilions and ice skating rinks specifically. North Dakota, is it North Dakota or South Dakota? Rapid City, so South Dakota, they have a really phenomenal one that they put in. So same thing with the concrete pad, it chills it, ices it, and then they also have like a splash pad in the summertime. It's really stunning, like,
Same thing?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's really visually attractive, as well as you have planter boxes, yeah, come on over. I wanna go to this
Does Cody
one.
use theirs? My understanding is Cody has a rink too.
Mhm.
I know that
And
Cody has,
It's,
rink out, it's inside or outside?
yeah,
Inside.
it's an inside steel building
Yeah,
ice rink that you,
So these guys, they put AstroTurf down in the summertime, which I don't think would be our goal, but realistically, I mean, again, you have your farmer's market, you have a place for people to go and do Zumba, that's not just the gazebo, you have a place for
Well,
vendors to set up booths.
Exactly.
Right, there's a
If
place
you
for
guys want to do
Shakespeare
the
in the park.
AstroTurf and have that, you get to
no.
put that in the
So
competition.
and here's what I think, is that, you know, one of the pieces is that this is the beginning of a planning thing.
Mhm.
And, you know, there's, what's wonderful is stuff like that to lay on top of that can always be added, right?
Exactly.
Like, you can put pickleball courts on. You could put pickleball courts on it just temporarily
You could do,
to do a big, you know, a big
Inline
tournament or something like that.
Big hockey, I know that
You-
they have those.
You can do, so it becomes a pretty open space that we don't
Skating
have.
rink.
You
Yeah.
can do it you could do roller skating in the summer. There is a lot of opportunity for this that we don't really have. Because if I said, hey, I need 200 feet by 100 feet of concrete to do something on right now. There is
Yeah.
no place in Red Lodge that you can do that without just basically
Without
being a
falling
partner.
through the floor.
And one person, I would talk to Sherry too to find these stats, because I really wish I had gotten all of these slides from this presentation, because we were both at this presentation.
Okay.
And they were talking about the added visitation from just the pavilions that they added into these different communities of similar size, and it's really astounding. And so, to me, I've been hung up on this for about a year now, and so,
And really, I think what we're asking for tonight is the permission to start planning.
Yes.
Not, this is not, hey, can you approve this, we're gonna build it a week from next
No, no,
Thursday?
yeah.
It's,
This is
can
a
we
blessing
spend
versus
this,
something that's
we're-
gonna take 3 years.
yeah, we wanna spend $17,000 plus some money that the ice rink has to start building a plan.
Yeah.
So but we don't wanna build a plan if everyone's gonna say no, right?
Right.
Like,
Not
doesn't
wasting
make
that money on that.
yeah, so then we'll have a plan, then we can present the plan, and you can say, oh, this looks great, or, oh, we wanna do this, and then we can keep moving forward.
Yep.
I agree.
Now, there's one caveat I'm gonna throw out here. Tom is not gonna be here tomorrow. So as we're talking to council tomorrow, if Andy's able to be here, he won't have been here for this one, but he might be able to make it tomorrow. But
Thank you, Chris.
you guys are gonna have to be able to relay on this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
that's, easy.
This one's
um,
an easy one to do,
Yeah, and
So,
I,
and then I'll go back to the first part, which was, the second part, which was really the first part, which is, as you're doing this, say, how do we want this to go out? What went wrong with the ones that we don't like how they played
Right.
out? And how do the ones that do play out?
that was exactly, that was the best.
Yeah,
Jump back into.
transparency on all of it, just, and involving the
Yeah.
community and
Trans-
input.
Transparency, responsibility, and just,
And
A
realistic
better-
expectation of what's gonna happen someday.
Yeah,
I think there's also a piece in there that you wanna put is community interest and excitement. And I know that that's a hard one because, but you realize that some things have a lot of community momentum behind them,
mhm.
and some things have a very small group of people who have
Agreed.
a more narrow interest. And I think, as much as it's hard to say that has to be a determining factor, in a sense it does, because you're looking for the things that are gonna be the greatest good for the most amount of people, and so, and I think you guys do have some opportunity when you're talking about green space, like we've got the stuff over, at your dad's place that's gonna be,
Green
become
space.
green space.
Yeah,
And so, and one of the things that I think is funny about Red Lodge, right, like, you look at some of these pieces in these cities, and they're trying to build things for people to do stuff outdoors. One of the reasons I think we struggle with our parks is because we've got
We got the
great,
best park ever,
we've
right
got
outside.
this great
5
park.
minutes away.
Yes, we've
There you
got
go.
great outdoor opportunities here. So what we need are more structured things,
Yeah.
Something to bring
right? Like,
into the
we don't
community.
need to provide a spot where someone can have a picnic
No.
necessarily. Is it great to be able to have a place to have a picnic in town? It is great. But there's also 47 million places where you can pull over and have a picnic with the best view in the world.
But if my kids wanna go roller skating,
There's no place to do that.
Yeah, or, I think,
Seasonal, you gotta make it a year-round thing.
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Is there a way to put a what's roller skating, isn't it wood?
I don't even know.
You
but
can,
that would
you
be
can roll it
great.
in
Yeah,
concrete.
concrete fine.
Yeah.
The biggest thing will be just what that texture of surface is to make sure that it's not,
The hardest thing that I believe
Is the concrete.
Well, it's gonna be flat, right?
Yeah.
Flat, and so flat in our world, mostly you think flat or not flat,
Yeah.
because they drain water.
Yeah.
This, you can't have an ice rink drain water.
No, it needs to maintain.
It needs to maintain, so it actually has to be flat. So one of the challenges in the summer will be when it rains, it will have puddles in it.
Yeah.
That's just gonna be the nature of it. Even if you were to build a basketball court, you would build it so it would drain. But you can't do that. That area out there, they built it to be flat, but it's a foot difference over 200 feet, which doesn't seem like much. It really is almost nothing. But when you're
Elevation.
filling something with water, I think it costs
You
us
can
right
really
now an
tell.
extra 30,000 gallons
On one.
to fill it just because it's not perfectly
Wow.
flat.
yeah.
Are you also, thinking about putting a rail all the way around it? Like when you ice skate, especially the beginner?
There would be boards, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there would be some
And
boards.
something that's removable.
And these
for
are-
Yeah, it
summertime.
would look similar to what it looks like today, actually. And it'd come out in the summer.
To
Yeah.
go into the planning, like, we can figure, like you
Detail.
said, like,
Yeah.
this is,
Detail.
right now, yes, go through, let's start,
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
don't,
And again, be thinking about tennis courts, pickleball courts.
Right.
They want to expand
Yeah.
disc golf up there. Right now, one of the things that has come to mind, I have nothing against disc golf, but what's happening is there are holes that have been added by squatters' right. We'll put it in here, and then 3 years later, somebody goes, oh, there, we have a disc golf. Did the city ever approve that? Was the city, did council ever get an idea on that? And so it's this idea of these little projects that poke up that somebody's little favorite group without going through a city
And again,
process.
going back to
I
it,
will tell you, the city did approve disc golf in Coal Miners Park probably 25,
it was a while ago.
20, well, a long time ago, because when we first had the front bar, we actually used to print and sell the disc golf that they used on that disc golf course.
I think that was
Now it's expanded to 6 lots all the way around it.
Oh, yeah.
So wasn't it before, it was even before the high school was put in there.
Oh, yeah, long before the high school,
We were-
yes, it was.
so to
way-
bring this back to focus, sorry
Oh,
guys,
sorry.
like, we got a limited amount of time and I wanna, and yes, I agree with all of that, but just to bring it back to a little bit of a focus. So the big thing is going through, figuring out what that process looks like and identifying responsibilities,
No,
budgetary constraints, who's, is what, and what
Benefits.
width of like, what people have the ability to do within those MOUs and leases. And making sure that's very clearly defined, so we can continue to have disc golf, but not having additional holes pop up when we're not necessarily allowing that, or we allow it within certain parameters. So
Yeah.
just making clear parameters, always the
Or
goal.
a row of trees or an extra fence that
Right,
pops up in Van
exactly,
Dyke Park.
yep,
And
so,
see, my problem with the MOU, when I was looking at it for the observatory, is that they can cancel the MOU in 30 days.
and so, again,
So
these are
30
things
days.
that we can clean up and
so
fix.
we'll, yeah.
Yeah, so we
So-
need to think about those MOUs being a little firmer.
And again, I like the idea of, there's a difference between MOU and lease.
I do too.
And so, again, you're using a structure or putting in a structure, that's a land lease at that point.
Mhm.
There's a different
I'd like to
level
see
of
that.
responsibility, and
Versus
again,
just using.
yeah, versus
that
like,
as
I'm gonna
is.
plant flowers here once a year, and then that's my
An MOU,
responsibility.
no big
Yeah,
deal. But if you're gonna actually put a structure.
Right.
Something that is there,
And,
where.
and also understanding what's just become city property, right?
Right.
Like,
Yep.
so,
The city's ready to assume it.
yes, exactly, yeah, so a playground, right? Like,
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna get volunteers, they're gonna raise money,
Mhm.
we're gonna, we're gonna build the playground, but then once it's done, it becomes a city playground,
Yep.
right? And now there's gonna be some
Neat.
parks maintenance, and the city needs to maintain that, so then
Lake
that,
Trails is
yeah.
a great example of
yes,
this.
yep, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so,
There's different types of projects. There's something that's potentially year-round, multi-use, that it's more than one organization that's gonna have an interest in versus an observatory that one organization.
narrow.
Very
Very
narrow.
narrow.
Yeah.
Very narrow.
Right.
And
So-
it's not usable, as far as I know, it's not open every night so that you can actually go and.
but I think more so where our purview is not, I think the folks that are gonna be doing the planning and the fundraising and getting all that community excitement together, our parameters aren't really going to rely on that. It might make a decision different, like, it might be, well, we don't really wanna approve something that we're gonna take liability of if it's only serving 10 people, but we are willing to take a different liability for something that's gonna serve tens of thousands of people.
And
So-
tourism.
Yeah, and tourism. So that's something that we should include in those parameters, is like, okay, what criteria is it that you have to meet for us to be willing to go to that extra step? So,
Be ready to assume liability at
Right.
some point.
yep, and it's not, it could be, again, we can get as big with this as we want, or as simple with this, but being thorough would be great. And so,
Yeah, one is,
Is this something that we could, if somebody wants to, apply for, their own use, in other words, somebody wants to rent it,
mhm.
are we really gonna charge them $100, $200, or can we actually change the amount?
we can
Because
change the amount,
for that particular
space.
space.
That's a
Yep.
big space.
It is a big space,
The current reason we have
and
it,
more expense.
the current reason we have it as is, per what Brian Hanna told us in admin, was he didn't see a need to make it any more expensive, because really with the workload that's coming to him and the expense for them to actually maintain and run those parks, like, for instance, we had the conversation about the rodeo
I gotta
ground.
go, thanks,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
But for instance, the rodeo grounds, like camping up there, is extremely cheap because they're only having to pay for the insurance and like
Mhm.
the $100 fee or whatever,
Yeah.
and we're like, should that be more just because
So big.
it's
Yeah.
so big? And he's like, realistically, it doesn't cost us that much, they're responsible for
For
cleanup.
cleanup.
We do a simple walkthrough with them, same as we would for any other size park.
Not much for them to damage.
So if it's this one down here, one, I would imagine liability insurance might need to be increased, that would be my personal thought.
Right now, we do the same whether you're renting the rodeo park grounds or Price Park. It's
Exactly.
$100
Mhm.
and staff.
Exactly.
So I don't know that, unless it gets to the point that, you know, the pool is one where there are specific user fees that are there, but the skate park isn't.
Right.
The skate park's just there.
Well, I think about the pool though, if they rent it out for a private party,
They
there's
have a
different fees.
lifeguard and.
Yeah, there's staff,
And there
there's
is, and it's in
machines,
there.
like, and again, this kind of thing, there would be something that has to, they're gonna be running a compressor, there's gonna be pieces, like Zamboni's gonna have to get run, all of those types of things. So on top of your standard
Normal.
50, 100, you also have these use fees. And where these cover the
The
pieces that are needed for this actually to
Expense,
be,
there's an expense involved.
right. So I think that's reasonable, and I think that's absolutely something that will come up in the conversation, so,
Mhm.
So that'll
Um,
help cover some of our.
So we will
right.
discuss this tomorrow night.
Yeah, and again, my goal really at this point, like I said, I threw it on there, there isn't a resolution of intent, because I don't know what that looks like, but it's
Okay.
just, I wanted to get the conversation going, so I can go back to this group and say, go ahead and put $17,000 into your budget, which is their money and their budget for a PER to go in and get an engineering report on this. But it's like, it's really stupid for you guys to do that unless the feel from council is, yes, we like the idea, let's pursue this.
And
Yeah.
this is the ice hockey group?
No, it's
No,
actually it's the grant group that's put together, there's a board
Yeah,
of
they put together a whole committee just for
And
this,
I'm-
because
and
this
I'm
is a
part
really
of that
complex
committee.
grant.
Yeah.
So, because that was one thing I'm honestly surprised that they got it, because it's a very comprehensive grant. And to actually put all the pieces in place in the timeline that they did is very impressive. So, again, this isn't a, just we get $500 to put benches in, this is a big deal.
Mhm.
And I'm really proud of them for doing it.
I agree.
So
And
it's
look,
just a
they-
group of
okay,
people
so-
that put
yeah.
together this grant.
Well, the community foundation is who headed it up.
So
But you have-
That's where I was headed.
Okay.
Okay.
Community Foundation
Waiver.
submitted it because as a city, we didn't have the resources, but we're involved with it. So they'll get their money
They
for
get the
handling, they'll get their cut.
Okay.
But they're utilizing city resources, it's, as I said, it's a large scale
Obviously,
project.
ours would be a
Is
little
that
bit
something that
different.
we approve?
There is like
We
a
have
ticket
to,
booth here.
We didn't have to.
because it goes straight to them.
Yeah, but I do like the liability waiver.
Finally.
Mhm.
Birthday parties, corporate event packages.
Yep. And again, the summertime events are just as cool. Like, that's the kind of thing that,
Well, that's where I always headed.
Right.
Roller skating
Well,
instead of ice skating.
Well, and how
Well,
much
again,
easier it is
just
to,
concerts,
Yeah,
jam band,
everything.
like, people being able to set up in the park, and you can still do picnics, like, you can, like, create little gatherings, mini gatherings, like,
it's a lot safer for people that wanna do like the farmer's market. I
Mhm.
mean, trying to watch someone in a wheelchair trying to access
Yeah.
the farmer's market where it's located now.
Hard to watch.
yeah.
Exactly, so if there is an actual pad in which they are located, it's a little more accessible.
Okay. So, love
Thank you,
all
Madam
this.
Chair.
Mm-hmm. So we have 7 minutes left. We're gonna jump into the growth policy review. So with that, growth policy is in, public comment period.
It is
And,
online.
I'm sorry?
It is online.
It is online.
it?
Yep, and
Yep.
so I'll make sure that I get that forwarded to all of council. It's very pretty, I'll say that. They
As
did
a
format it
BCC.
much better.
Where is it? Is it in the
I'm
website?
sorry?
As a BCC,
Of
thank
course,
you.
yes.
It
Is
needed
it-
some.
Yeah, I did. What was that?
Is it in on the website?
If you go to
Yeah.
news, if you go to the front page and go into news,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so we will be reviewing that for 30 days. Public notices have gone out, across the board, very thoroughly reviewed. I would say that there's still a few pieces that I would still like to emphasize on a little bit. Specifically, housing is one section that I felt like was a little lean, just for opportunities anyhow. But again, that's minuscule in terms of actual growth. I think it's just important that people read through it and it aligns with what they believe in, so.
And,
Oh, that's ugly.
and the meeting for the public to attend the,
Well, there's a,
Yeah, the public,
is that April 9th?
I believe it's actually April 23rd.
Because there was a 30-day,
Mhm.
yes, I think you're right.
I
okay,
believe it's the 23rd.
which one? The draft or what? Oh, that's 2020, my bad.
Yeah, that one would be.
That's for a public meeting regarding the.
Oh, she's talking about the actual document.
I just pulled up the document.
Yep.
It took a little bit to get there, but
It's what, only 65? No.
I don't know, it's
100
still
pages?
loading, so.
It was what?
86.
It's not that bad.
Oh, it got
It
smaller.
got smaller. It's the photos.
It was 103, what, lack of?
There's a lot of pictures, there's a lot of maps.
I don't even know what I'm looking at. Okay, now I do.
Yeah, I know, it took me a second too.
It was 103 pages, so they've lost 17, that's not bad.
Yeah,
Or-
Oh,
so,
look, my name's on there. Okay.
huzzah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely read through it, because your name is on it. So, you best approve it, you best agree with it if it's gonna be, if your name's gonna be
There
on
are,
it.
look at
So-
this, look at the list of all the pictures.
Oh, so many pictures.
So many, average temperature, FEMA floodplain. Okay, all right, well, here we go.
I would, and this is, I have to preface this with, this is kind of like my personal
Mm-hmm.
preferences or thoughts coming out, but like, as you look through it, don't just look at what's there, look at what's not there. So for example, right now, there's nothing in our growth policy that says the downtown business corridor is gonna be for businesses. If Tom wanted to rip out that ATM right there and put a 700 square foot miner's cabin bungalow, single family home use right there on Broadway, they
That's
could do
in there?
that. Is that something we want to address?
Well, again,
Oh,
one
okay,
thing
stopped in
specifically, the marijuana businesses, not something that are addressed. So, and again,
Okay.
for me, it was the housing bit, where going through and looking at opportunities for housing, it's just like, this could be more robust. There are more opportunities that we've already identified at a city level. So let's make sure that that's detailed, because one of the main purposes of the growth policy is obviously setting our objectives and making decisions over the next 10 years. And then 5, I say 10 because
It's every
it's
5
always a
years.
revision versus a
Every 5 years.
redo. So over the next 5 years, it'll be the decision maker, but also it's how we can potentially get grants. This is something that if we reflect it within these documents and these master plans, it will make it more likely that we can obtain grants for certain things. So those are the two big like prerogatives that I have with it, where it's just like, okay, are these the decisions we actually want to see made for our community? And are these actually the objectives for our community based off the people you know? Because the people you know are different than the people I know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and again, there's gonna be some minuscule tweaks and changes that need to happen, but, on a whole, that's the big purpose to go through it, is what are some of the objectives of people that you, in your community, that you feel need to be in those?
Okay.
Okay. If we want, we can dig into that. I would like to do a deeper dive on it before it comes to council.
And it's coming to council.
Well,
tomorrow?
so what it's gonna do is it's gonna go through public comment for 30 days. Planning board will go through and make their changes, and they're gonna deliver to council what they would like their finished project to be. What we don't wanna have this do is what happened to zoning last time, which is planning board sent it in and then council just made real-time edits and slapped them in there.
Yeah.
Going back to the marijuana business, that's kinda how we got where we are, is it just came back through. So ideally, if we've got changes and input, we should give that to them so they have an ability to review
Yeah.
and incorporate them.
Ideally, it would be great if we could have changes to them by the 23rd, when they're also getting that feedback
Okay.
from the community.
Well, they get the feedback on the 23rd.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So if we can have our feedback for them as well at that same time, they can be reviewing all of that
all
at the
at
same
the
time.
same time. And then it will probably need another 2 weeks for the final to go to
Yep.
planning board.
Mhm.
And then it goes to city council for the first, but it's gonna be public. The city council
Yep.
has to have 1 or 2 readings.
I think two.
Probably
Two
to adopt
public-
it, I think
Yep.
it's an ordinance.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think it's too public.
Yeah, so,
So it's midsummer.
yeah. But again, it'd be great to be able to get our feedback
But that's the
now.
process, it's
Mhm.
kind of like,
Right.
it's kind of like our meetings. We have this wonderful ability to tell you whether the next meeting is gonna be low or not, because like tomorrow night's not gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, thinking about your front yard, thinking about sidewalks, thinking about parking, like, all of that stuff that can be, like, can be addressed in here. So, again, a little bit of homework, a little bit of light reading before bed, do a couple pages at a time, we have 2 weeks.
A section at a time is easier.
Yeah.
My students are required to read for.
And like I
Give it to
said,
your
look
kids,
at-
man, make it a
look
homework
at what's not
assignment.
just there.
Your report.
Right?
Look not just at what's there, look what's not
Not
there
there.
that should be there.
Yep.
Okay.
Because we have had some issues that aren't addressed in a growth policy.
Yeah, and that's, again, there's already a few that I have kind of in my
Agriculture?
brain. Yeah, agriculture, I mean, it talks about culture, which we felt was a little light, like, again, there was a few things that felt like they needed a little bit more of a robust feel to it, and it'd be great to get some other input on that as well. Mhm.
That still needs, okay, all right,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll, go through it a little bit better.
And then also look at the Main Street Square in Rapid City, because that's super fun.
That does look like a.
It's so cool.
I love the strands of light that are,
Like, look at this, like, look how cute that is, man.
the little fairy lights.
Yeah,
That's a
well,
little-
come and look at this, baby.
That's
Okay,
cute.
well,
Now,
I
I
fully
pulled it up
adjourned the
There we
meeting.
go, I didn't hear the part where you said meeting adjourned.
I did it.
I
Yeah.
pulled it